At some point in the digital age of boss babes, new money, and ambitious rookies, we stopped consulting our village's wisest. Women have been the heartbeat of the world within their respective communities, workforces, and families since the dawn of time. They are the magic makers, the peacemakers, and the ass kickers. Let's celebrate them with the Matriarchy Party. Rachel Lowenstein is the global head of inclusive innovation at Mindshare, leading strategy innovation for how brands use marketing, media, and technology to reshape society for good. She steers workstreams for UN Women's Unstereotype Alliance as part of her remit. She works with global Fortune 500 brands to be more intentional in marketing. Rachel's passionate about the possibilities of creativity in media for social impact while considering the ethics of technology use. How's that for a bio, first of all? This is like part one of it. We're going to talk about so many amazing women in her life and her world, but I want to just name drop some of these sick brands that she's had the pleasure, they've had the pleasure of working with her, really. She has a robust background in culture-driving brand marketing and strategy, working with top companies on multi-million-dollar global campaigns, including Chanel. Casual. Let's start with that one, of course. She's so chic, so to know her, that is not surprising at all. Museum of Modern Art, Facebook, Kimberly-Clark, General Mills, Booking.com. As an autistic woman, Rachel has established a community of over 90,000 people across her social platforms for her unique perspective on being an autistic creative and leader. She's worked with Google, Getty Images, and more on building a neuro-inclusive future for neurodivergent creatives because of her visionary leadership. I am so in awe of you. I feel like I couldn't even get through that because my eyes were just emoji heart eyes. Hi, welcome to the podcast,
Hi,
Rachel.
Thank you. I feel like all of your emoji heart eyes for me are like equally mirrored back from me to you. So This is just going to be a love fest of a matriarchy party.
It will, 100%. Rachel and I met in Scottsdale when we were both working at the mall many years ago. At the mall, as you do. Both like longing and goal setting for we had big dreams. We still do, but it is so exciting to have watched your career trajectory just wheels up from the minute you were like, I'm moving to New York tomorrow. I feel like we talked the day before you were moving or something, but that was over a decade ago. And to see you really create this whole new division. And I feel like, did the job even exist at Mindshare before you were there? I don't think so. Everything has been because of what you're carving. Companies are just chomping at the bit to work with you. And it's so exciting. We can talk more about that, but yeah, how amazing.
Every job that I've had, I've been at Mindshare for my entire adult life. It was my first big girl job out of college, but every job that I've had for the last 8 years, I created for myself. So I almost think of myself as this entrepreneur in a giant corporation.
Yeah.
So it's like entrepreneurship with the safety and the partnership of a large corporation.
Yes.
I'm very privileged to be able to do that.
It sounds like the best of both worlds. Because the safety net is nice to have somebody paying you every 2 weeks. But then also it feels like you function in kind of that entrepreneurial spirit of, because you're doing so much more out of your set 40-hour a week plus role there. With your public speaking and jetting off to faraway lands to give speaks. Wow. We need more caffeine today. I don't know, maybe so, but I'm just so proud of you and I'm just honored and blessed to have you here today. Well, let's talk about, tell our listeners who we're talking about for your matriarch today.
So I was raised in a matriarchy environment, which is to say that I was surrounded by really strong-willed, visionary women from birth. My mother is in a family where there are 6 girls. I call them the original Kardashians because they all have K names.
That's perfect.
So all blonde white women with K names.
Wow.
Which was a joy to be around. And I'm not being sarcastic. It was the most fun, unique childhood because there were six women plus my grandmother. So 7 strong-willed head of household women who modeled for me and all of my cousins what a matriarchy could actually look like.
Yeah.
Which is to say it was very calm. It was very nurturing. There was never any doubt that anything that we ever wanted to do, we couldn't achieve because my mother, her sisters, my grandmother always had this vision that they could do it, and they did, and that we all could too, and in many cases we have. So they're everything to me. My mother, her 5 sisters, and my grandmother, who has left this earth and moved on to another place as of August. But it was the most wonderful childhood that I could have ever hoped for, and I attribute all of the success that I've had from having such kind, supportive women around me all the time, and even now.
I love that. And without getting too teary-eyed, I mean, you were one of the first people that I thought about with this, because I know how close your relationship is with all of the women in your life, but always very close with your grandma. And so, yes, I mean, we'll celebrate her today a little bit.
We should. Alice was a forceful woman and was a independent head of household woman when at a time where people would have scoffed at her for doing that.
I mean, and just like the legacy she left with all of the women that came after her, just forging their own path because of what she demanded. I love that.
Yes.
Well, when we think of a matriarch, we think of a woman who is the head of their family, tribe, or organization. It sounds like, in many ways, just from what I know, and I'm sure there's a lot I don't know, but when in your life do you feel like you had to demonstrate those traits, whether by necessity or not? Obviously, you're very young. You have 4 children, but no human spawn like myself. So maybe not matriarch in a traditional sense of like being the mother hen of the family, but you are in many communities, online, in your personal life, and with friends. And so do you feel like there was a moment that you were like, I have to forge through and do this, or no one's going to come to save me?
So I actually feel like this opens up a conversation about what it means to be an autistic woman. And I feel like I've had to do this my entire life. Being autistic means that I experience the world differently. I see the world differently. And sometimes it's at odds with how most people around me see it and experience it. So I've always felt like, even from a young child, that I've kind of just had to do it on myself and forge my own path and hope that other people might see the vision that I have and come along on the journey with me. And all that to being said, I think from like 5-year-old Rach till now, I've had to just be my own matriarch and figure things out for myself as I go, because usually what ends up happening with personal work projects, I'll have something in my head, and early on, which I think a lot of people experience, other people don't see the vision, right? And they're doubting it. And if you talk about your big dreams with people who might not share that vision or aren't big dreamers, they're not going to support you, or they're going to make you question even people who have very good intentions and want you to succeed. But because I see things so very differently, it's 9 times out of 10, I'm not sure that's going to work, Rachel. So I've usually just been having to kind of keep my head down and go through until whatever I'm dreaming up comes to life. And then the rest of the world might see.
They'll get on board.
They'll get on board with it. But it's usually like it's up here for me first. And up here is a very different world than most people experience. Yeah. So I've just had to like race through life as my own matriarch most of the time.
I mean, I see that. I feel like I've seen those, the baby pictures of just like tiny Rachel. And I'm like, oh, I can see it. Just like
there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot happening. I mean, I love that. I mean, I have a twin brother and he's 2 minutes older. And I kind of was like, maybe I was strategizing in there to the other 2 minutes I was cooking when he came out first, because I feel like since then I've been like just running circles since I was able to walk. Yes. So similar. Oh my gosh, I love that. Do you think that there was like a defining moment in specific, and I guess if you want to talk a little bit about most of your life, you went undiagnosed. Like it was a recent discovery that you found this like huge defining trait about yourself that you're like, had kind of an aha moment. And I'm sure a lot makes sense and you're able to advocate for yourself and others in such a great way now that you have the new knowledge, of course. But how did that come to fruition?
Yeah. I told the story on several podcasts recently, so I feel like I made this joke last time. So if anybody's listening to like my podcast history, I feel like I sound like the Lady Gaga meme where she kept saying the same thing about Bradley Cooper on the Star is Born tour.
Exactly.
Like, there could be 3,000 people in a room. So this is my moment. All you need is one. This is me with my autism diagnosis story. So the short story of it is that my entire adult life, I had never not been depressed or anxious. And during the pandemic, when we were told to stay home, not socialize, not be stimulated all the time, within a week, I suddenly felt really good. And I was really, really happy. And, you know, it was during a really scary time of the world. So it's not to say I wasn't extremely anxious living in New York City and in the middle of a pandemic. It was more just that personally, a lot of the inner demons that I had always struggled with were melting away. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, why do I feel so good at like the worst time in the world?
Yeah.
And it was through seeing women on social media talking about their experiences with autism that suddenly I, for the first time in my life, felt seen. And it took me about, we'll say 6-ish months of just reflection and research in classic autistic fashion. I hyper focused on this, and I made like a 20-page long Google document of every experience I'd had from when I could remember as a child until now, and was fairly certain that I was probably autistic. Shared it with my fiance, Matt. He was very supportive. Shared it with my parents, who were very supportive too, and was very privileged enough to get a diagnosis in October of 2020. So I was 30 years old when I was diagnosed with autism. And having that self-awareness quite literally changed my life. It saved my life. I had struggled with mental health for as long as I can remember. And it's not to say that I don't struggle today, but I have the coping mechanisms, the tools, the resources. So I've thrived professionally because I've been able to see I fundamentally will work very differently than most people. Personally, I will have different types of relationships with people, relationships that are a lot more deep and meaningful. And I've created a life for myself in the last 3 years that looks very different than what my life looked like in my 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot more happier for it. So it's quite literally changed my life.
That's incredible. I mean, I think it's so hopeful in a way. Anybody who's out there who's just like, I know that there is something underlying and maybe doesn't feel seen. I think it's so encouraging that, like, I mean, first of all, 30 is so young, but still like so much of your life.
Yeah, going 30 years and only knowing yourself in one dimension.
Sure.
When every other dimension you hadn't explored or didn't understand or didn't have any cognition of. For anybody who's received a late diagnosis for any type of neurodivergent condition, disability, whether it's ADHD, dyslexia, autism, you will know how understanding yourself and the support needs that you have will change your life.
100%.
In any capacity.
Yeah, I have ADHD, and I feel like I wasn't diagnosed until my late 20s. And I was like, oh, of course I do.
I didn't know you were a fellow spicy brain.
Spicy. I was like, as a fellow neurospicy gal, I think just there's so much power in being able to like have boundaries now that I feel like, and unfortunately, maybe they didn't feel validated before, but like, oh, this is a reason why I like hyperfixate on something and go to the point of exhaustion, because either I'm just going so heavy in the pain on this thing, or I give myself not enough time to do the thing that I want to do. And then it's procrastinating up until the moment of that you cannot procrastinate anymore. And then just going so hard in it, then you're like, oh, we're doing it at 100 out of 10. But I think also being able to say, I can't do that, but I can do this, or I need this support to do this, or just asking for help in a way that I haven't done before, or just like drawing a line of like, I love you and I just can't. And that's okay. And no is a complete sentence, but advocating for yourself. It took until my early 30s, I think. And now we're just teens of early 30s.
We're just teenage girls in our 30s. Well, this is why I think it's so important for women to have their own matriarchal systems, because I think women are really bad at advocating for themselves. Sure. And then when we find those systems and that place of confidence, we become another avenue and a mechanism to teach other women how to do that.
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with my other spicy brain friends or my neurotypical friends who just don't know how to advocate for themselves. And it's what I've created my community on TikTok and Instagram around, is advocating for yourself as a neurodivergent woman. Because most women, like I said, are really bad at it. We want to people please. We want to be everything to everybody.
Liked by everyone. And
it's so freeing to realize that it's okay that some people are going to dislike you. Like that is just the fact of life. You will be a villain in somebody's story as long as you are acting with intention and thoughtfulness and being a good person. That's all you can do.
That's all you can do. You can be the ripest, juiciest peach, and they'll be...
Love that quote.
Thank you. Is it Tina Von Teese?
Yes, and someone will always hate peaches.
There's going to be somebody out there who doesn't like peaches. So that is so freeing, because I am a recovering people pleaser, and everybody likes to be liked, but I think just being like, I know I'm being authentic to myself and I'm a kind and respectful person and have the best intentions and have self-awareness. And that's all I can do in many scenarios. So, but I do think like going back to like, whether it's your matriarch or sister or friend that you're close to and can kind of help advocate for with, push ideas off of, just so that you're getting the encouragement and support that you need. I mean, it's so important to have matriarchy, because I know a lot of, if we were like Ken in the patriarchy, nobody would be communicating about anything, in my opinion. So
absolutely. I mean, how my career has been built off of other women reading my emails real quick. Like the amount of like, even like a few weeks ago, just sending off to my work bestie and being like, hey girl, I'm sending this email to this big, scary senior executive. Can you just proofread it really quick?
Can you just check my exclamation point usage? Is it just on par?
Too much?
Is it just never enough?
We are teenage girls.
Of course. We need a little help. Yeah, it's like I've never had so many confident, capable, successful, brilliant women. Again, I'm Lady Gaga. Wonderful, never foreseen, amazing, incredible. That are also like, we're still overthinking things because we're like, does this sound good? I'm second guessing. It's imposter syndrome. So obviously you have so much success and it just keeps growing. But do you have a marker of like what success means to you? I'm sure it's different now that.
Now that I have an autism diagnosis. That question 10 years ago would have looked very different than what it looks like today. And today it's marked by feeling like myself. And I know that's a really reductive and simple answer, and this ties back to being an autistic woman, the worst times in my life are when I felt a lot of shame because I was hiding my autistic identity. I was masking it. And I was doing work that was at odds with who I was really. So 10 years ago, I was running around New York, working myself to the bone, grinding, interning at Mary Claire magazine, which was like the silliest professional experience I have ever had. No shade to hers, but anyways, and it was shaped by a life that I think looked really good on the outside, but didn't feel good on the inside. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But today, I am so proud of the work that I'm doing, because going back to people pleasing, I'm fine saying no to things now. Yeah. I'm fine to say that's not within my skill set. That's not even what I want to be doing, and advocating for other people who might be better suited to do that along the way. So the work that I want to be doing more of, and the work that I've been pushing for in the last couple of years, is work that feels good on the inside. And as a corporate girly, just to talk like about that in a really mushy, emotional sense, I think we need more of that. We need more. Because the people who do the best work in any environment, but especially corporate environments, are the people who bring their whole selves to work and aren't afraid to dig into their emotions, to dig into their personal experiences, to be vulnerable. There's a line of maturity and professionalism and all of that, but I also think that doesn't prohibit you from bringing your whole self to work and being honest about that too.
100%. I think I think about this a lot, actually, of how different the world would look if everybody was, paid fairly is the first piece of that. One. We can have many podcast episodes just on that. But if compensation was taken out of it and you were doing something that was authentic and true to your own self and like filling you up, like what a different world it would be. Because I feel like as both of us in careers that are like really just filling our love tanks because it feels purposeful and you get to lift up. I mean, a rising tide lifts all ships, and like to be able to lift up those that deserve it. They're hard workers. And the people that you surround yourself with, like, I feel like there's so many people in my life that I'm like, if just given the right opportunity, like I'm always kind of thinking of how I can connect who and just
masterminding, as Dr. Taylor Allison Swift would tell us.
Dr. Swift would say, we're masterminds. Hello. So exactly. I'm always scheming to try and think of like, how can I connect this person? This person needs to talk here, because I think we're stronger in numbers, and I just like want to lift everybody up that I can, that is like a decent human being that I like love. And I'm like, you just need this connection and then your career is going to take off. Because I know, for many years I was just struggling like, I'm good at this thing, but it's sucking the life out of me. So I think to be able to have that awakening, that's like, this is I'm getting paid great money, but there's got to be more than this. And I know that I can give more than this, but a lot of realizations there. But do you have a time where my whole brand is like ask for what you want, I feel like. So do you feel like there's been a time where asking for what you want or demanding something like really paid off? I mean, I'm sure there's many instances actually. But.
Yeah, I think my career has been marked by if you don't ask, you don't get. And I've worked with leaders who really encourage that. And I've worked with leaders who, it's more about playing the game in the long run. My personal brand and my personal vision is no one's going to advocate for you as hard as you're going to advocate for you. And you do the work, you earn your stripes, you prove that you're good and that you're trustworthy and that you're someone who can do whatever it is you want to do. You want to achieve your dreams. You will meet people along the way who would love to help you because people are selfish and it will help them. And, I can give you a dozen examples, but, as I spoke about in the beginning, most of my work has been shaped around my skill set because I've been able to find a way to advocate for myself, find a way to prove the value of the work that I was doing. Right. It's not just because I was like, hey, it'd be cool if I could do this thing, but it was like, hey, I'm really good at this. Clients, brands appreciate this, as noted by all of these achievements that I can show you to leaders or to whoever I was talking to. And here's why you should invest in this type of work or talent. The inclusive innovation work that I've been doing for the last few years, that was marked by me doing ERG work, right? I created an employee resource group. My vision for it at my agency was inclusive marketing is increasingly going to be an imperative for any brand, right? If you market to the same people without any nuance, you're not going to grow your business. And I also just happen to be very personally passionate about how brands can use marketing for social good. So I translated that kind of more advocacy work into a full consultancy that clients were paying for. So it's about finding what you're good at, what you think people will pay for, and in the middle of that Venn diagram is how you should advocate and ask for whatever it is that you want. But you have to do both, right? You have to find the value that people will pay for it, and you have to find what you're personally good at. It's really hard to do, but once you do, that's where you can figure out how you make those demands or make those requests of people around you.
Right. I think that's so important to note because I think a lot of people think the only way people are given these opportunities are either A, they're handed to them, which is so false,
Nonsense.
But it's like asinine. But I think also like that you're just like, hey, it would be cool if, and it's not that at all. You're already in it. You're already doing the work. You're the expert on these things. And generally business comes down to making more money and like what people are going to pay for. And so when you find an opportunity and can create that value in a way that you're like, I'm already doing this, I'm passionate about it. There's a whole wide open spaces of opportunity. Like it would make financial sense to dive into this because people are going to pay for it. Then it's like the perfect intersection there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what people will see at the end output, they'll think it was handed to you or that it was like, everyone always says an overnight success was 10 years in the making.
Yeah.
Right? That is like the most true quote 100%. In the world because most people who are successful, even the social media celebrities who go viral overnight, it's not an accident. They have a vision of what they wanted to do. They created a personal brand for themselves, and then eventually it gets picked up. Right. It's the same thing for corporate girlies. It's the same thing for girlies who run their own business. You see the foundation of what you're really good at. You find a way to make it valuable for consumers, for your clients, for your company, and you find a way to marry those two to get what you want. It's all very strategic and it takes time, but once you can get it, magic will happen.
Just start listening to Mastermind on midnights over and over again.
And then that is my
my North Star. Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to hear more about the UN Women work that you're doing right now. It is so exciting. And I feel like a manifestation that came to fruition maybe for you.
Yeah. Sometimes I like take a step back and I genuinely am like, what the fuck? Like, how did this happen? Like,
I'm just a teenage girl.
I'm just a teenage girl. Why did the UN let me speak at the United Nations?
Come on.
Like, I'm just a girl. What am I doing here?
Amazing.
So I had been helping UN Women with some strategy work as part of a relationship that WPP, which is our parent company, had with UN Women at the time. And eventually I was introduced to the Unstereotype Alliance, and the Unstereotype Alliance is UN Women's group that focuses on commercial business and advertising. And Unstereotype Alliance is an alliance of many different companies, Unilever, Mars, et cetera, major corporations that have all pledged to commit to removing stereotypes from people in media and advertising and content. And it's part of UN Women, so it has a ton of resources and backing behind it because it's part of the UN. And they have given me so many incredible opportunities that I never thought that I would get, working with them on a number of work streams to help media be better through the lens of businesses, marketing, and improving the media ecosystem for people who've traditionally been othered by media, whether it's women, queer folks, trans folks, people with disabilities, et cetera. So I've been doing a ton of work with them over the last couple of years, and it's been the utmost privilege, whether it's joining them for speeches and other forums around masculinity, around inclusive media. They gave their formal backing to a project that I did with Getty Images to improve autistic representation in media. So I'm very grateful for all the partnership that they've been able to give me, and it's been, to say the most exciting and interesting part of my career would be an understatement.
It blows my mind. I mean, I remember following, I just feel like it's been so long in the making. It's such an obvious like synergy and partnership there. And I was like, are you kidding? I mean, it makes sense. It's a perfect collab. So I hope to see more and more things. Like, I imagine you have more cooking up with them then?
More cooking up with them. I just wrapped a summit with He for She, which is not related to Unstereotype Alliance, but also a group within UN Women that Emma Watson, who was like literally my childhood hero.
I was like, what? Hello?
Yeah, Emma Watson founded it, and they asked me to speak at their summit about masculinity and the manosphere. I've done a ton of work on that space. My brother, in his 20s, was unfortunately radicalized into some of those online spaces. And over the last year, I've been roadshowing a speech that I created that my brother helped me with, because luckily he got out of that pipeline. And as part of that, He for She asked me to speak at their summit all about masculinity and finding ways to actually advocate for men, and why advocacy for men needs to happen, because we are in a place right now where, for the first time in modern history, men's ideas about gender equity are now regressing. Because of men with podcasts, because of the manosphere, because of, it's a multitude of things. But all that to mean said, men are feeling very disenfranchised. And if we want gender equity for women, we have to address that men are not doing okay in society right now.
Right. I mean, absolutely. I think like the beginning when we were talking about, we're not anti-man. It's like everybody needs the support. It's just there should be equity, and like as much as women need to be paid the same as men and have the support, usually in work settings, I would say men need emotional support. Everybody needs both support. But I'm like, everyone. The patriarchy, it hurts everybody. So it's just like, it's not an anti, it's like everybody can use more support in different areas. And so that is such important work. I'm literally was listening to you like with tears in my eyes. I'm so excited. I'm like, come on.
Thank you.
Just get to work with Hermione and casually, like,
I mean, if she was there, I think I would have been like, I need a Xanax, I need to calm down. Like this is not
hold
okay.
Hold on, deep breaths, but yeah, maybe the next one. You can do some power poses. Well, when's the last time you did something just for fun?
I try to do something that just feels good to me every single day, whether that's taking my dog for a 30-minute hot girl walk.
Yeah.
Whether it's just going to the gym and just moving my body in a way that feels good. Going to the Eras tour, which was like more than just like doing something nice for myself today, but like blowing a shit ton of money to go see Taylor Swift. I've spent the last 3 years, as I spoke about earlier, trying to create a life for myself that doesn't feel uncomfortable every day. And as part of that, it's about choosing those little like glimmer moments every day that feel good and aren't in service of being productive or aren't in service of building my career or whatever, but
monetizing.
Not everything needs to be monetized. Yeah. Everything needs to be content. It's really hard if you're a content girly like we are.
Yes.
However, even if it's just indulging in my 500th binge watch of Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
That feels good. It's fun. I have no shame about it. And I actually think being in your 30s is shaped a lot by just returning to the things that we loved when 100%. We were teenage girls.
Now we have adult money.
We have adult money. We don't have the shame of being like, oh, you
That's
like
not
this.
cool, or you're too old for that. Or,
oh, you like pop music? That's so lame. Or, oh, you read fan fiction? That's so lame. Like, I do all the things that I lean fully in the things that my teenage self loved. And that feels really good.
I say that all the time. Like, I'm really just want to make my 10-year-old self and 16-year-old self, like,
lose their shit.
Any opportunity I can. Like, yes, I want to make my current self happy, healthy, whole, but I'm like,
we're doing it for them.
I live for those moments. We're doing it for them. Come on. Everybody had a tumultuous teen experience, I'm sure. Like, so just do what's going to make them happy. Because I feel like maybe it was just like the movies I watched that you think like, oh, I'm an adult and now I know all the things and I am very mature and success looks like X. And now it's just like, you're still that 10-year-old, that 16-year-old self in there.
100%.
You're just like,
we've just grown up. We've gotten better at doing our eyebrows.
Yes.
And we have adult money now.
Exactly.
But we're still just the 8-year-olds who just want to do girly things.
Yes.
And be a girl.
Exactly. Or whatever it is that, like, I don't know. I'm never going to yuck your yum, but yeah, just want to wear platform shoes still. And
that's like my
listen to
mom,
pop music, okay?
Speaking of like my mother and Matriarch, my mother would never let me wear the Spice Girls platform shoes. And it's like, I have no beef with my mother. I'm very close with her. But to this day, I'm like, it was kind of shitty that you didn't let me wear those platform shoes when I was 8 years old because I really needed them.
You're like, in all the childhood trauma that people could have, that's mine. So
that was my matriarchy trauma.
Oh, I love it. You can buy the Stella McCartney ones now. It's great.
Yes.
Well, let's dive into your matriarch. Yes. So matriarchs, you have many of them. You grew up with all of them. I guess starting with your mom, like, did she have a career outside of the house? Was she a full-time, like, mom in chief of the house?
Mama was a corporate
girl, of course.
So just like her mother, she worked for the airline industry.
Cool.
My dad was a stay-at-home dad. He ran his business from our home, but he was really the one that took care of the kids. Like, literally, we lived in a matriarchy.
I love that.
The Lowensteins were doing a little, like, test run of what matriarchy could look like, and it worked out great. She worked in corporate America. She is close to retirement now. And she worked for U.S. Airways, which became American Airlines. And then her mother was one of the first flight attendants for TWA. She actually had a bottle of Chanel perfume sent to her by Howard Hughes when she was vibing around in her custom Dior suit as a flight attendant in, the 60s or 70s maybe. So she has a lot of stories, and she was also a badass working girl. So I just was always surrounded by women who were doing things that other people weren't. Just doing things in the complete opposite gender norm, especially for that time. Like, I love that. Mm-hmm. Do you, did that make you want to follow in her footsteps? I guess mom and grandma both seeing them in fabulous suits, like going off to the workplace or flying in the friendly skies that now I feel like you're wheels up all the time into glamorous places. Were you like, ooh, I want to do what they do? Or do you feel like, ooh, I see this and I want to pivot and make it my own? Or I think it was more thematically that all the women in my life were doing things that felt like authentic to them. Mm. My grandmother always yearned for adventure. She traveled the world. Her husband was in the military, and all she ever wanted to do was just live life in a very adventurous way. And my mom wanted to build a life that provided for her family, that allowed her some freedom, financial freedom, work freedom, travel freedom. She loved to travel too. Her and my dad have traveled the world together and have lived many, many lives before they had children. So it was more thematically seeing these women, my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, my mother's sisters, building lives that felt really good to them, which is why I model what my success looks like as something that feels authentic to me.
Yeah, that's your North Star.
That's my North Star.
I love that. What do you think the defining moments of your mom's career and life have been?
I think my mother's career has been marked by building a life where she has her own flexibility and freedom and being able to achieve things that feel good for her. I think my mom has also been unbelievably selfless and has given my brother and me everything. When I wanted to move to New York, we didn't have the money to do that. And it was, we're going to make this work. We're going to figure out how to make this work. We're going to find you an apartment with a family friend. We're going to use her flight passes so you can get out there, right? My mom and my dad too have always found ways to advocate for their children achieving their dreams. And it is my hope that I will be able to give them everything that they want in their retired life because they gave everything to me when I was growing up.
Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely. That's the goal.
That's the goal, is just like set mom and dad up for retirement so they don't have to worry.
100%. Do you feel like she had dreams she put on hold to have children? It seemed like she was able to. I mean, it sounds very much like she had it figured out of a way to have balance. I'm sure there was sacrifice for sure. But do you feel like every mom is a superhero? I cannot imagine now, of course, with adult eyes and just knowing what it takes to just run a household without children in it. It feels like, did they get a handbook? All women are superheroes. But do you feel like she put anything on hold to raise you and your brother, or sacrificed in that way, or she really kind of figured it out to balance everything?
Yeah, I think women are forced to balance everything. Whether or not that's fair could be a whole other podcast, because men are never posed to how they balance everything.
No,
it's just like,
so
you
true.
have a woman at home who balances everything for you.
You don't have to plan anything?
Like,
it's because people are doing it for you.
Yeah, exactly. My mom was a dancer growing up. That's how my dad and her met. They were both dancers at Arizona State, and my dad cast her in his senior thesis as the main dancer.
Hello, rom-com.
Literally a like Nora Ephron rom-com waiting to happen. And then they moved to New York together because they were both dancing. My dad danced with Martha Graham and Alvin Ailey and all these very, very famous and incredible dancers. And my mother continued to dance, but pursued a career in the airline industry. And I think she wanted to be a mom very badly, but I think she also really wanted to build a professional life for herself. Would actually be a good question to maybe ask her that I've never really been thoughtful enough to pose. But I do know for my grandmother, if we click one level higher, she raised 6 girls during the Vietnam War while her husband was off in Laos and Cambodia. And she moved the girls around the country on her own and built a life for the family effectively by herself while her husband was off in the military. And knowing the type of life that she had when I knew her, after she had lived many lifetimes, it seemed that she wanted a life of adventure. She traveled all around the world as a flight attendant, spent every waking moment that she could absorbing all of the adventure. She came to New York to visit me several times. She'd always say, because my grandmother was very macabre this way, she would say, "This is going to be my last time in New York because I'm probably going to die soon." And I was like, Alice, calm
Grandmas?
down.
Oh, why do they say that?
Why do they say that
so
stuff?
Funny.
Yes, it was just like, Alice, let's not. And she loved nothing more than just being in cities, being by herself. So I think she did the best that she could at the time where she was raising 6 girls. And then she found a way as society happily changed to pick up the life that she wanted and make it for herself.
That's incredible. What do you think the biggest accomplishment of your grandma's life was? I mean, all of that seemed like it. So I'm like, I don't know if I need to ask. 6 kids, I'm like.
I think it was raising 6 girls who have their heads on straight, who have raised their own children for most of them, who are all very different, and fostering individuality with them. And being the most wonderful grandmother anybody could ever have. I used to go see her in plays when I was younger. She would act in local Phoenix theater. And she built such a big community of fellow thespians around her, like young people who were like our age, who she was friends with. And I think that probably was a big professional success for her too, is building this community of actors, because she loved being on stage. She loved performing. I
was like, wait, I wonder if our grandmas knew each other. My grandma also acted at the Phoenix Theater.
No way.
But like when she was young, like first having babies.
Send me her name. I'll ask my mom if there was ever like a connection there. That would be wild.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I feel like seeing people act, like I've never acted in my life, but I always say public speaking is literally just acting. You're just delivering emotions. You're delivering you're delivering a performance.
Yeah.
Seeing my grandmother act on stage always gave me a lot of courage when I was first starting to do public speaking, because she's the only actor that I've ever known. And just thinking about her getting up on stage in her 60s, 70s, 80s and doing it fearlessly, it gave me so much confidence.
What a joy to, I mean, your grandma, like to see on stage performing in that way and their process. And you're like, I mean, my grandma's 60. And if she's throwing herself.
Your grandma's only 60?
No, I'm saying your grandma, if she in her 60s, 70s, doing that to watch and be like, how I have nothing but privilege. I can get out there and do it. If she's out there, like forging this new path, like when people are retired, she's like, no, I'm going to go and build this whole new career for myself.
It's like they always say your retirement is your second act. Alice had like 5 acts.
She had many acts.
Yeah. She was like, we're not stopping here. We're going to do more.
You can't slow down. Just like, why not pursue another dream?
Yes.
Sure, I'm 70. Well, what would you say that you admire most about your mom and grandma? Or, I mean, it sounds like authenticity beyond everything.
Authenticity and also kindness. You know, Alice, I think specifically with Alice, my grandmother, she had such a special way of making everybody feel very welcome and very safe and very comfortable with her. But she never did it in a way that sacrificed her own boundaries or needs, which, you know, going back to people pleasing and us being very, very bad at advocating for ourselves. It was never even a question seeing my grandma navigate any social situations that she wasn't being the most kind, thoughtful person. But it was never like she was overextending herself and doing it in a way that harmed herself or her mental health. Literally goals. Because I'm still not good at that.
I can't do that. I haven't figured that out yet.
I haven't figured it out yet. And with my mom, you know, the same thing. But it's also with her, my mom is the most selfless person I've ever met. She will do anything for her children. She'll do anything for her husband. She'll do anything. If someone needed the shirt off of her back, she would give it to them. And to live life like that obviously can be negative in some ways. But I also think for her, I admire it so much because no matter what, she always is so, no matter what happens, she never loses that.
Wow. Such goals.
Yes.
Like just ruminating in it. I mean, I think especially when that's her passion and her goal, it doesn't feel like she's being, like it's a burden to her because she loves taking care of the people in her life, it sounds like. So it's very much not like a soul-sucking thing, whereas I can imagine if that doesn't fill your tank, it would feel that way. Mm-hmm. Okay, now some rapid fire. What do you think is the best advice or something that stuck with you that your mom, your grandma, one of them told you?
At one point, I think it was when I was figure skating, maybe. I was a figure skater.
Of course. I was like, talk about several lives.
Oh, God. Yeah, being a competitive figure skater gives you a lot of trauma growing up, is all I'll say. I enjoyed it very much, but it was intense. I think it was when I was figure skating. My mother said something to me that today, to me, is still the best professional advice I can give anybody. Not everyone's feedback matters. You will get feedback from every angle, from everybody at all times. And a mark of maturity and a mark of emotional intelligence with people is learning how to filter feedback. I think at some point, maybe when I was like a teenager or preteen, somebody said something about like the artistic style that I had as a figure skater. And I was ruminating on it and I couldn't get past it. And I don't know if those were her exact words, but that was essentially like the thesis of what she was saying, which was like, Rachel, you're going to get bad feedback sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't matter. And learning how to distinguish whose feedback matters, or even when their feedback matters, that will help you immensely. And I think, unfortunately, it took me a long time to figure that out. And I also see some of the most lovely, intelligent women in my own life who are really bad at filtering feedback. And sometimes I just want to be like, you don't have to listen to that. Just shift that to the side. And I think that's why it's, again, so important to have women you trust around you, because sometimes I'll even just bounce something off a friend or a work bestie or a boss, whoever, and gut check, like, hey, should I be listening to this feedback? And knowing your trusted confidants in your life, people will be very— That's so important. It's so important to have people in your life who know, just ignore that. Or, yeah, you probably should lean into that a little bit more. Fair. Yeah, and there's like a very small circle of people that I have that I trust to bounce that off with. But I think you should also get very good at your own internal dialogue and your own internal confidence to know, nope, don't need to listen to that. Or
I know what I'm doing. I'm foraging on there. Or like, yeah, you're right. I didn't spend as much time researching that topic. I probably should go back to the drawing board.
Exactly. And the feedback will never stop coming, especially as you get more senior, especially as you are doing, as you do, like more magical things in your career, and just learning to like shift out the bullshit and then also focus when it does matter. Back, it's really, really tough, but it's really important. And I'm very grateful she told me that when I was, I must have been like a preteen maybe.
It's so necessary. I mean, I feel like people, grown adults don't know that because it's like, I mean, it's going back to the people-pleasing tendencies, but I feel like very much so I'm interacting with, as you are, in the career space. I mean, there's so many new people, so many personalities to kind of like put on the Ritz too and razzle dazzle, but ultimately it's like going back to I know I'm a good person, I know I'm really good at my job, and I know I have everyone's best interest in mind. Like, if I'm getting feedback, I can take it, but also like not need to change my whole business model because one person didn't like the way that I had too much confidence or something. I mean, it's just taking that into mind.
I mean, and this is why, like, this is something that women, I think, specifically deal with much more than men. I think men deal with it, but I think socially speaking, women are conditioned in a way to be liked. And if someone is critiquing something that you're doing, it's a natural response to want to appeal to them, to appease them. When people are critiquing maybe work that men are doing, it's on the work and it's on their outputs, where women get a lot of critique on how they delivered something.
Them as a person, it feels more
their
personal.
Personhood, exactly. And as America Ferrera beautifully said in the Barbie movie, it's really fucking tough to be a woman, and you have to be like liked, but not too liked, and all these things. Filtering that feedback almost becomes impossible the older that you get, and again, the more senior you become in your career. And it's why confidence and self-worth becomes so important, and like the number one thing you have to work on the older that you get.
1,000%. Gosh, I'm like, America's speech in the Barbie movie. It's just like,
sometimes I just
make
like
a monument.
I just like watch it on TikTok, just like feel something.
I'm just like,
I want a good cry.
For better or for worse, I just like, you're right. Oh, it's so relatable. What is one word to describe your matriarch?
It's one word that I would use to describe my matriarchs. I would say loving. I grew up, a lot of people had really tough childhoods. I didn't. I had, and I say that acknowledging the full privilege that it takes to come with that. It doesn't mean that there wasn't trauma.
Sure.
But it means that I had the adults around me, especially the women, were so loving. And I didn't grow up in a house where I was begging to be loved or thought of or supported. In my early 20s, I remember I was with I was with some other people. I will not name any identifiers. I was with some people who maybe weren't so kind, people that were older than me. And immediately after that interaction, I left and I went to go see my mom and her 5 sisters and my grandmother. And it was like,
were they all together a lot? You could find them all in the same person's house?
All the time. Oh. Like literally my mom has her group chat of all the girlies, and they would every weekend, they're all together.
I can't imagine you being a group chat girly, but you love that for them.
I love that for them. They've asked me to join, and I'm like, I love it for you. Text me on the side because I can't keep up with the news feed. The autism said no. But anyways, I went over to their party that they were having together. And it was like literally walking into like this big warm hug. One of my aunts grabbed me by the face, gave me the biggest kiss on the cheek, and was like, "You're so beautiful. I'm so happy to see you." And it was just like this warm hug of women, like womanhood personified. And it just felt like the stark difference of a group of people who have not known as much love as I have known to going to a group of people who show nothing.
Know you
love.
better than anybody else too.
Yeah, it really reshaped. It made me realize how grateful I was to just have a group of women who are so generous with their love.
That's so important because I feel like you said, everybody has childhood trauma. Nobody's given like a manual of how to parent. So it's like, there are things that you realize you're like, oh, I needed this from my parent and I got this, but how would they have known any different? But just that, like, like that loving without abandon.
It should be the norm, right? I shouldn't sit here and say that it was a privilege. It should just be like,
everybody should be loved by their parents.
Yeah, I grew up in a loving household, period. Like it shouldn't be weird. But every time I say it, I like recognize how weird that is to say out loud, to not unpack my trauma. But my trauma didn't come from a household of people who didn't love me.
Thank goodness.
Thank God.
You know? Is there any beauty advice, a product or accessory, or like the way that you are dressed that is impacted by them?
So my whole mantra to style, which you will know because I talk about it on my social media all the time, is I want to dress in a way that makes my 8-year-old self just like lose her goddamn mind. Yeah. Like pink, frilly, Polly Pocket vibes. And my mother and her 5 sisters and my grandmother always, like, they all dress very differently. They all have their own unique sense of style. And I feel like I probably picked that up from them at some point, that they were all doing their own thing and I wanted to do my own thing too.
Dress for themselves, and you're like, it wasn't necessarily modeling your fashion, I want to say, your style, your sense of style from them, but it was more along the lines of like dressing for yourself, which they all kind of were individually there.
Yes. And Alice specifically, I want to add this anecdote. Alice at one point was very sick with breast cancer. And I remember I was in the hospital with my mom visiting Alice. I was maybe like in middle school or something. And it's a core memory of mine. And this is like my approach to beauty. Yeah. Alice was laying in the hospital bed and my mom had this beautiful, like, sparkly lip gloss on, like pink sparkly lip gloss. And Alice said, "You look so glamorous and beautiful. Can you put some lipstick on me? Aww. Like, you just look so lovely." So my mom put little lip gloss, lipstick on her, like sparkles. And say what you want about beauty. Sure, it's superficial. You should have confidence outside of the lipstick that you're wearing. But there is nothing wrong with just wanting to feel feminine and beautiful and lean into all of like the superficial stuff that makes you feel like your best self. And I just love how she said it. It was just like, I'm laying in this hospital bed. I feel like shit. Yeah. Put some lipstick on me.
I love it. I feel like there are a few things that lipstick can't fix. I feel like anytime I need, it's my armor.
It's literally an armor. I also think it's like a man repeller, for sure, in a certain sense. Yeah. Of like you're out and you just want to be like,
you're doing it for yourself and other women, and you're not putting lipstick on.
You just want to talk to the girlies. Yeah. You put on like a dark red lipstick, almost a black lipstick. No man is going to talk to you. The girlies will flock to you.
It really is armor. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I have learned so much about you and your family. I feel like we could talk for 8 more hours. I want to say, if you could say anything to your matriarch, what would it be? Can we call your mom?
Yeah, we can call her.
Oh, I love it. So Alice was your grandma. What's your mom's name?
Carrie.
Carrie
with a K.
Carrie with a K. Maybe she wants to talk. She's like, I'm busy. I got my own things going on.
Yeah, she had some meetings today. She told me she couldn't hang out with me.
Okay. I was like, what's your mom's name in your phone?
Mumsy.
Adorable.
She's a little bit British.
Of course.
Might be a callback situation.
Hi,
She's not answering, so I can tell her.
Like that sometimes.
Yeah, she's ghosting me for her meetings.
She's got meetings.
She's too busy.
Well, what would you tell?
I would tell her that the only way I've become the woman that I am today is because of her care and her kindness and bringing me up in a family that was nothing but love. And if I could give that back to anybody in my life, I will be forever child-free. I don't want children, but to my niece, to the other women in my life, to anybody that I interact with, I will have done my job in this world.
I love it so much. I feel like, that's so special. I think that feminism has this whole misconception that it's cold and hard and rigid and anti, but it's like loving at its core. And I feel like going or operating in your life like that, like you can be strong and brave and powerful and advocate for yourself and also just like lead with love it's the goal. You need to be more like Alice and Carrie.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we we do our jobs and we are on this earth and we are our best selves when we are generous with our love and we don't hold it back and we embrace emotions and we embrace all the things that we're feeling, you know, like your feminism, your advocacy. It doesn't have to be like so serious. It doesn't have to be attached. It can be warm and loving.
Yeah.
I feel like both of us need to go read some bell hooks after this because she talks about all of these things and so all of her work. But it's, you know, it's the most important thing that I think anybody can be doing right now.
1,000%. That is the perfect way to end. Givers gain, you know?
Yes.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. You're so busy and we're just honored. I'm just honored to be in your presence.
Anytime I can be around you, I feel like I'm just a better woman for it. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Emoji heart eyes. Well, thank you for listening. If you want more of Rachel, follow her on Instagram. And it's your name, right?
Rachel Issan, ISSAN.
At Rachel Issan. What is Issan?
It's my middle name.
Oh, well, there you go. Perfect. All right. Follow Instagram, TikTok. She's an amazing creator. Thank you. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.